Hey guys, it's Peter Dankelson from Pete's Diary. Welcome back to this Rig Rundown series. And today, we're going to talk to you guys about my 2019 Les Paul Standard in Bourbon Burst. So I kind of had to laugh a little bit about, the Bourbon Burst because basically, kind of nowadays, the choices that you have, it's kind of between the 50s and 60s Les Pauls, in Gibson's newer, lineup, right? So I went with, kind of the 60s, the 60s style Les Paul. 50s is great, but with 60s, the thing that I love right away is the thinner neck profile. And I do like these, I forget exactly what the term is, but the silver, the silver tops on the knobs. And also, I have a picture, we'll throw up here, but the top on this guitar is really cool too. Sometimes it doesn't really pop out in, videos or, live performances that much, but this guitar has a really cool looking top. So that's definitely one of my favorite things about this. And the pickups I think are pretty hot too. I think there's a burst buckers. I forget exactly which type they are, but still, it's stock. It's whatever comes in the main 60 standard. I know it's burst buckers though. I just forget which type. But yeah, this is a really killer guitar. So I guess one of the main reasons I picked up the Les Paul, I mean, it's such an iconic guitar for one, especially the sound. I mean, a Les Paul and a Marshall. I mean, that's kind of the definitive tone, I guess you could say, of like the 70s. I mean, think of all the great players, not just 70s, but 60s as well. I mean, Clapton, on the Blues Breaker album. I always think of Joe Perry too. I mean, Paul Kossoff, Keith Richards used one a little bit. I mean, so many players. I mean, the Les Paul, it's just the tone of it. I mean, so many players use it. But there is one person that kind of sticks out in my mind when it comes to whose fault it was to kind of hook me on the Les Paul, and that's Slash. Listening to like all of his stuff, whether it's Guns N' Roses, the Conspirators, or Velvet Revolver or Snake Pit. I've always loved Slash. I've always been a huge fan of Slash's playing, his style, and if you know Slash, you definitely know the Les Paul, right? So it's kind of his fault that I fell in love with the guitar. But, there's so many great players too. Jimmy Page. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Joe Bonamassa. So, I mean, the Les Paul really is just like one of those guitars. But it's interesting too, because don't want to say it's a love-hate relationship with this thing, because they're, Les Pauls are fantastic. They just have that, that iconic sound. And that look too. Growing up, even before I played guitar, you see pictures of Les Pauls and Strats and stuff. It's just, it's iconic, So it's got that kind of appeal to it as well. But the thing with Les Pauls, especially live, that I find really difficult is the weight. I mean, I'm a really short person, right? Not exactly the most built person out there, right? So the Les Paul, doing like an hour, if it's like an hour, 2 hour, or longer shows, the next morning I wake up, that's, from it digging into my shoulder, it's kind of painful. So the weight is kind of tough. So that's why I don't really use them live that much. If it's like a short set, like if we're going to do like a 45-minute or like a half-hour set or something, I'll be like, okay, I can bear the weight for that long. And deal with the consequences the next morning. So yeah, I do love the Les Paul, but for live use, it's kind of tricky. But studio use, I mean, I haven't had that much experience in the studio, but on the All Screwed Up EP, this was the guitar used for everything except the main solo and except for the solos in Girl in the Magazine. And this was used all, for the entire Crossroads cover. So, I mean, it's got, that distinct and, awesome, beefy Les Paul sound. But live use, it can get a bit tricky. So I guess the first time I really, got to experience, kind of the 60s style Les Paul, actually had the chance to jam with Jared James Nichols at, he was opening up for John 5 at the time. It was like fall... Yeah, it was fall of 2019. There's kind of a long story with that, but I got to jam with Jared, when he was opening up for John 5. Basically, Chicago Music Exchange was nice enough to loan me. They're like, hey, would you want to borrow a guitar to take the jam with Jared? And I'm like, oh, of course. So I do remember, trying out a couple different guitars at the store, and trying out a 60s standard Les Paul. The thing that I noticed right away was how thin the neck was. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So that's what kind of hooked me on the 60s style right away, was kind of trying one out there. And then I took that guitar. This isn't that guitar from the jam, but it kind of hooked me on that guitar, going forward. So I kind of realized that, okay, if I do want a Les Paul, 60s standard, that style is kind of the way to go. And then I was surprised with one on Christmas. I was surprised with this one on Christmas, So yeah, it's a really cool guitar. For a Les Paul, it for what I like in a Les Paul, it kind of hits all the marks there. So I think that kind of, summarizes everything that, I like about the Les Paul. They are backbreakers, for somebody like me. they hurt your back after a while. But, the sound and just the vibe that they give off when you're playing one, it's always super inspiring, super empowering. It's worth the back pain. Maybe not right when you wake up after a show, but, it's worth it. So yeah. That's pretty much everything about, this guitar. I still got a lot more to go. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye.